Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to meet you today. Hello, Zacchaeus, Bogdan, Neil, and Svetlana. We are still waiting for Gautam. And for all our listeners who don't know you yet, I would like you to introduce yourself a bit. And then we jump in the middle of the discussion. Are we on the brink? Who wants to start?
Well, I can start because I feel the topic is almost my fault.
Yes, definitely.
About 6 months ago, I wrote a book which was originally titled "Are We on the Brink?" And Marianne and I had many conversations. It later actually was given the title of "Igniting Collective Will," and here it is. Here the book, and it's one of 7 books that I've written, and it's about the topic of what we need to do as humans to be able to get ourselves away from the calamity that we face ourselves in. Some of the other books that I wrote are connected to the story, and the book that I'm thinking of mainly is Poorly Performing Men. And I know we have 3 men on the call, and I shouldn't be giving men such a hard time, but my opinion, this is a heartfelt opinion, that the calamity that we face today is through centuries of poor performance of men. And so the 2 books go together. We have these 2 books go together. I'm a coach and a counselor and a teacher, and I live in the bush out in Western Australia. So I'm looking over Zach's shoulder, and I can see the lovely trees in the garden where he is, and it could be a scene from where I live as well. It's the middle of summer, it's 38 degrees centigrade today, and I'm thinking of Svetlana in the snow. So that's me, and I've got lots to say on the subject, and I'll make sure that I don't monopolize. So thank you for inviting me, Marianne.
Yes, and it's such a pleasure to have a global community. One is in the summer, one is in the winter, and Gautam just did right. He has a medical emergency. He will be half an hour late, but he's coming. Who wants to continue?
I think I can go next. I'm Zacchaeus. I'm a regular show on the talk with Marianne. We have had a wonderful year, I think, sharing a lot on different topics. Of course, COVID cannot escape such a conversation because it has been with us since last year, March. So whenever I'm coming to share my thoughts and give a perspective about where we are in Africa and in Kenya, I always feel very honored, because then I'm speaking from this side of the world. Sometimes the voice is taken away from this side of the world. It doesn't really matter what we say. And often having an opportunity to speak on a show like this gives me a lot of pleasure and honor. Yeah, so I work in the community. I'm very, very passionate about access to quality education for children. I run 3 community schools under an organization called Inua Village to Global Foundation. I also serve as a country director for Lift the Children, where we take care of children who are living in institutions. I go around looking at those institutions, so I have an opportunity to go around Kenya, just looking at the institutions that take care of children, vulnerable children. And I also have an opportunity through my schools to serve children who live in their families, in their communities. And I have both of the 2 worlds, seeing those who are hosted in the institutions, the kind of challenges and struggles they go through, and also seeing those who live in families and in community setups and the struggles and challenges they go through. So I'm very passionate about lifting Africa and putting Africa in the right place in terms of being able to take care of itself, its people, and ensuring that humanity thrives. So I'm very interested to hear that the conversation today and to be part of it and ask ourselves, are we on the brink? So I look forward to wonderful perspectives from fellow panelists this morning or afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Zed. Who wants to go next?
Well, I can go. What I found is that, to me, it's kind of difficult to say what I do. So I found it easier to kind of, in a sense, show what I do. So maybe Marie can share some insights on what I actually do, because she's had a few experiences with me.
Yes, I can tell. Bogdan has developed an app for business coaching, and he does fantastic work on coaching for business people, helping them to overcome blockages. And he reminded me of that I have limits in my mind, and that I can extend them and be limitless. And the moment I thought of that, donations came in. Donations for the cat. That was very astounding to me.
What did you unlock in our conversations that you thought you didn't have access to before?
Some kind of inner wisdom, but I know we talked with my great-grandfather, but it felt like I'm looking down to the sea, which I did in our conversation, and it was like throwing a stone on the sea and see the stone jump endlessly up to the horizon and beyond. And it reminded me of my divine being.
Yeah. I really enjoyed speaking with your great-grandfather. He's awesome. Yeah, that's basically what I do. Thank you, Marie.
Svetlana.
Yes, I'm very thankful for you for introducing me and for inviting me to your society. I'm homeopath from Moscow. I'm a psychiatric doctor, and I research homeopathy and in different ways. I made new provings of homeopathic remedies. And I work on difficult children with autism, with mental disorders, and etc. And I arrange a homeopathic school. The name of the school is Proving, yes, this word of special word for homeopathic field. And from this year, I I work in essential oils. And I'm going to prepare essential oils and heal with essential oils too. And this area is very interesting for me, and arrange a society about essential oils. Okay. And I look. Oh, sorry. I can't.
Svetlana, can you tell us how the situation in Russia is at the moment? Because I don't know anything about how the Russian people are at the moment. And we have in different parts of Europe, we have angry people on the streets because of the thought of compulsory vaccination. How is it in Russia? I don't know anything.
The situation is not easy, but we can live in it. Yes. Mobility rates are decreasing now, but vaccination is we need to do vaccination like people if we walk in official plates. When we work, for example, like we in a private clinic, we don't need vaccination. But if we would like to go to the theater or music hall, we need to have a QR code. And we have different parts to become this QR code. For example, just a moment. PCR test. Test for the COVID, yes. Test about COVID. We need to take test about COVID and PCR test. And is it negative? We can go to the theater and to the concert hall, yes. And if we have vaccination, vaccination list, but I haven't it, and I don't like vaccination and don't prefer to be vaccinated. And what about the level of antibodies? Antibodies, yes, and we cannot measure the antibodies and begin to go to the open holes, yes. Unfortunately, only PCR code or vaccination code. Yes, and we are restricted now, very, very difficult in my mind too, and I am very pity about it. Because we are restricted. We can't go, we can't move fluent land, we can't feel in yourself like freedom people, unfortunately.
What impact does
but nevertheless we live in this situation.
Yeah. Svetlana, what impact does this have on the Russian people, on the psyche of your clients?
Just a moment. I have a lot of homeopathic patients, and 50% went to the vaccination, and 50% don't suspect it. Yes, I'm sorry. I don't support it. Yes, don't support it. And when I see and I support them with homeopathic remedies, and we can decrease the side effects. We can decrease side effects, yes, but a lot of side effects in other people without homeopathy, unfortunately, and it's very bad for situation, really.
Yes, you don't look happy. We can see that.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand very much. How's the situation about that in Australia, Neil?
Well, we have many restrictions coming in Australia, many restrictions. And we have only had a very few cases here. There's not been very many cases. But the governments are very determined, for us to be, not having the exposure and so on. Like Svetlana, I've been developing strategies to work with the side effects, and I've actually put together a strategic approach which can be applied across many different ways of healing. So homeopathy, acupuncture, Ayurveda, the traditional medicines and so on as well. So understanding the strategic needs is the big opportunity going forward. And I feel very hopeful based on my clinical work. So I opened up a clinic for vaccine side effects, and the clinic now is many hundreds of people coming through it, and we're getting very, very good results with all of the major side effects that are coming from it. So it's an interesting situation. With the holiday in Australia, this is the big time of the year for holidays. It's our summertime, and also the Christmas, the festival season for Christians, and so now is a very, very important time for families and for people to be able to group and to form community, and this has been completely prevented. Is being absolutely prevented.
So
they can't travel from one place to another in Australia, and so on.
So how is the emotional state in Australia? Are people angry, or what's going on?
The fear has risen very, very strongly with the this new variant, the Omicron. So the fear has come up stronger even than 1 year ago. So Zach was talking about the beginning of his conversation with you, Marianne, 18 months ago in March of last year, and there was a lot of fear then, but it's nothing compared with what there is at the moment. The fear is crippling. There's many interesting things arise from that. One of them is that the overwhelm is so strong. So people are so overwhelmed by their fear and the anger and so on that goes with it, that they're developing many strategies to try and manage that overwhelm. And cognitive decline is becoming very common. So I'd be intrigued to hear from Svetlana, who's a clinical person, and also Gautam when he's on, just actually what's being noticed worldwide clinically, because here in Australia and my international clients, the drop in neurological functioning, so just it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary what we're seeing.
Well, we had 2 years of stress now, so cognitive decline is quite usual after having 2 years of stress and overwhelm and high cortisol levels. But definitely that is no good outcome. Bogdan, how is the situation in Romania according to that?
Well, it really depends on who you're asking at the end of the day. And absolutely any situation, you will find people who thrive and you will find people who absolutely go crazy. It doesn't matter how stressful or comfortable the situation is. For me personally, this whole story was a huge blessing. I got really scared initially, like everyone. I was washing all the products in the sink that I got from the store, and you just don't know what to do. So back then we were living in Bucharest, the capital, and it took us like 2 weeks to decide whether we should leave the city or not and move, with our parents, myself and my girlfriend, my fiance. And we finally did, and we spent 2 months at my parents' house. We're currently at their house right now visiting. We no longer live with them, thankfully. No, but it was a good time. And then we spent 1 month at her parents' house. And that's when we realized that the big city life wasn't for us, because we weren't finding it as often. Just the idea of being in a garden instead of locked up in an apartment was really, really good for us. So the opportunity came up and we actually moved closer to the mountains.
Mhm.
We left the big city, and life is totally different right now. And we would have never done that without this global thing that's happening. We would have still kept lying to ourselves and kept living in that stress and said, no, we can take this. It's okay. We have to stay there. This is what you do. So for us, it was a huge, huge blessing. And to kind of support your what you're saying, I'm not exactly sure what's happening, because there is the concern of government taking on too much power and not being willing to let go of said power. And at the same time, there's always a yin and a yang. Government is getting more power, but I think we're also getting a lot more personal power by just being locked up. And there's nothing more stressful and more scary than just being there with your thoughts, or just being there with your significant other and having to face certain truths that you could have just put, under the rug because you were just spending time in traffic the whole day, right? And just being distracted. So I like to look at it with, on both sides. There's definitely disadvantages and there's definitely advantages. There are people who lost everything for sure, and maybe realized that wasn't the thing. That wasn't who they really were, and then started something new. So I think it's also a huge opportunity for us as a collective to face our truths. That's my perspective.
That's great. I'm just thinking of Gautam, who will come soon, who started studying law because he had more time, was more at home.
What was she studying?
Law.
Law. Yeah.
He started studying law and he's quite finished now, I think.
Yeah.
He will tell us later. So he said for him it's an opportunity too, but of course the restrictions, who likes them. Zacchaeus, how is the situation in Kenya at the moment?
Yeah, I think the way we started last year, COVID has really been a contradiction in many developing countries. It has been a contradiction of the state not knowing what to do, and the people not knowing whether to trust the state or to who to trust really. And I think that has escalated. But the big issue has been balancing between livelihood and lives, and the narrative has been if we lock down people, they die of hunger because we don't have enough resources to give them. We don't have we don't have big checks to give the people. So the government is in that place where they can't completely lock anyone down because they won't provide for them the basic necessities. But also they can't just let people go around, So they have there have been measures in place since last year, but those measures have not been effective. We haven't seen them very, very effective. And there have been kind of two worlds, the city and the urban life, and the rural areas like where I am. I was meeting a few people here yesterday, and they have really moved on. Life has moved on. They live as if there's no COVID, and they never lived as if there was COVID. Even when government moved in to really crack down and enforce in the rural villages like this, people just retrieving their homesteads, and when government officers who are few and are not well paid go back to their stations, people go back to living their normal lives. So if you come in the villages like this, you will feel like there is really there wasn't something like COVID until maybe you go to shopping centers and then you will see a few masks, until you go to urban centers and then you will feel a little bit of pressure in terms of how people are living their lives and how it's being conducted. The whole issue of vaccination has really picked up across, I think, across the continent. But what we have seen a lot is the reason as to why government is pushing for people to be vaccinated is completely different from what we see in Europe and in the West generally. The narrative here is if people are not vaccinated, sectors like tourism industry will be hit. The tourism sector will be hit. And if you want to understand that concept, is Africa tourism sector is one of the biggest earner. Agriculture is the first in some countries, and then tourism the second. And we have countries that survive purely on tourism. We have cities and towns that survive 100% on tourism. And what that means really is a hotel which employs local people. It employs farmers. It employs people who supply everyday stuff. If 2 or 3 or 4 tourists refuse to come, that whole hotel is not able to operate. And that means many more people are affected. So government finds itself in a place where the West are really pushing the issue of blacklisting and putting countries in the developed world on a red list, countries where you should not travel. And such communication really affects how the citizens in the West receive such messages. They tend to believe their government more than anything else. So when government says, for example, recently Britain said, put South Africa on the red list, and everything came crumbling down because the British said that South Africa is not safe. And they do that all the time. So they put countries on blacklist. But when you look at the number of infection, when you look at the people who are infected on a daily basis, even since when COVID started up to now, they don't come anywhere close to what we have seen in Europe, the numbers we have seen in Europe, for example. In Kenya, at the moment, we are talking about less than 5,000 deaths since we started this COVID issue back in 2020 in March. Up to today, we haven't reached 10,000 total deaths across that have been reported. There are very few. As we speak right now, infection rates have gone up a bit, maybe to 16%. But the general aspect of even testing is very low. In Kenya, they are testing an average of 5,000 people per day. That's a very small test, and the numbers they get out of the 5,000 are fewer. So you see, the reason as where we are and how we are looking at the COVID situation is more from how the West will react to developing nations not taking action, not being seen to take action. It's not really about that we need to take action because it is affecting us. And if COVID was to kill Africa, I think by today we'll not be talking because we don't have hospitals, we don't have functioning systems. If it was really something that was devastating and could kill Africa, I think today we'll be talking millions of deaths. But we are not there. We are not anywhere close to what the Western countries have experienced. But you'll still see that our energy and our strength in terms of combating COVID is way above what the West maybe are doing, because we are fearing and our governments are fearing how the West is going to react to us seemingly not being able to take seriously the issue of COVID, them stopping to do trade with us, putting injunctions on the countries and economies being affected. So we are really at that place that even now, despite the fact that the numbers are low and the situation is fairly better, you will still find that government have to push that message and have to make sure that they are seen to be doing something. For the lack of better word, to please someone, that person then can report, hey, this is what we are doing in Kenya, this is what we are doing in Tanzania, this is what we are doing in Uganda, but really not because the situation is that dire from where I sit and from what I see. So that's what we've experienced. And when you go in the cities, you will feel there is a lot of uptake of vaccine, for example. But when you come here in the village, you will find people are not aware of it. There's no much information about it. So there's always that contradiction when it comes to how do we approach the problem. Is there really a problem that is affecting us to a level where we should put the kind of resources we have put and the kind of energy and strength we have put in trying to combat it? So If you look at the numbers here, they are reporting malaria still kills many people. Pneumonia still kills way many people. Tuberculosis is killing many people than COVID put together, you know. So the priorities are a little bit skewed, but our governments are forced into that position by the kind of reaction they will receive from the big donor and the big fund and the people they get credit from. Yeah.
So it's a big economical impact.
Yes, exactly.
So finally, Gautam makes it here.
Awesome. Zachuas, can I ask you 2 questions? Is that cool?
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. So the first question, I might sound like a big ass, and it might sound like a very naive but very stupid question. But here's what came up when you were sharing, and thank you for sharing. You mentioned like your vision is to make Africa self-sufficient.
Yes.
So what came up is, what better opportunity to do that than not relying on tourism anymore or as much? Hi, nice to meet you.
You want me to answer that and then you ask the second one, yeah?
Yeah, like what do you that's the first one. Like how do you feel you could flip out, like if there was any chance of flipping this disadvantage of not relying on tourism as much and turning it into a huge advantage, how would Kenya do that? That's the first question. The second question is, what do you feel you've done better than European countries that you have such low rates in terms of COVID infections?
Yes, I think on the first question is, in terms of Kenya, I will look at cities and towns that depend on tourism, because Kenya is diverse. Kenya's economy is one of the most diverse. It depends on different things: agriculture, mining, tourism, a bit, many other components. So it depends really with which part of the country you are. So, for example, if you go in the coastal region, which is has one of the best beaches in the world, in Diani and those, the economy depend entirely on tourism. But what we see we can do in such incidences is diversify and train people, and especially what we are doing in access to quality education, especially for the early childhood, because when people are not educated, they don't have options. They wake up and they look to the beaches to go and walk along the beaches, find the tourists, serve them, work in. The only thing they have in the mind is what they see. But we have seen people who are educated and have opportunities in the early stages. So one of the big opportunity right now is ICT and technology, because Kenya is innovating a lot. Kenya is coming up with very wonderful ideas around money transfer and different applications that can really improve lives. So when people are equipped with education at early stage, they have options. A lot of things that have happened across Africa is lack of options. You only have one option. And many times, if you miss that chance, or you are sort of doomed to work in one specific area and you don't have many choices. So when we are working in rural areas like this, the first thing is to try and open up the children to various opportunities in terms of how they can use their talents, for example, in music and other things that they can be able to do and be able to depend on themselves, rather than just live and think about what is around them and live the way their forefathers lived, or the way their mothers and their parents lived, who didn't have a lot of opportunities in the beginning to go to school or to try new things. So I will say that education is the key to it, and focusing on technology and what technology can do to really diversify the options that are available. And I think there is a lot of work that is going into that already. On the second question about what Africa did best
before you dive into the second, may I add something? I think your response is exceptional.
Yes.
As somebody who grew up in a third world country, and because you're an educator yourself and you're doing an amazing job at it, I just wanted to add this element of, when you're growing up in a third world country, there's this sense that people in more developed countries are somehow more valuable or at a higher level than you, just because of where you're born and where they're born. I think just as important as the education in terms of creativity and IT and, you know, unlocking these resources, there should also be a component of self-worth, of understanding that you're not better or less than other people around the world, and you're just as capable as anybody you're following online or whatever you're doing.
Yes, that one you make a very important point. We have seen, and this is a narrative that emerges from colonialism, the history of being colonized and the trauma from it. I think many people have not healed from it. And a lot of our curriculum, a lot of the materials we consume, a lot of the art, the culture is really shaped from that point. The originality of the things that we used to know and have as Africa, many of them were contradicted through the colonialism period, and you find we lost a lot of identity in that. So even as young people, we really struggle a lot with identity, and that's one of the biggest crises we have right now. Because when I get a little opportunity, I want to go to the West. I think you know, there are more opportunities there, or I'm better there. And you will see this across the continent, and that's partly what is contributing to the migration crisis we have from Africa to the West. And it's the narrative that has been sustained and pushed by the West in terms of who we are and what we can be able to do. But that really works for business, because they are exploiting resources here. They are using a lot of raw materials from here. For example, if you go to the Congo, a lot of minerals that are used in big tech industries in US and in the rest of the Western countries come from the Congo. But the people in the Congo are put in a state where they have to fight all the time. So these are things that we can address when we are dealing with the individual communities, like where we are now, helping people accept who they are, recognizing the cultures and the things that are valuable to us. Because if you go even in the museums and if you go to things that should really teach you who you are, you wouldn't find much that will help you understand who you are. So that's a big question. It's something that we need to continue to deal with and need to continue to address, especially to the children that we are raising now, to prepare them into that future where they can accept their identity, they can accept the strength they have, and the ability to do things differently. And I think COVID gives us that chance, that we have been able to come out differently than what we were expected. Because when COVID started, everybody said, oh, if we are in such a big mess, how about Africa, where things are not working? But you can really see that at the end of it, we look like we have performed better. And that is to your second question, is because Africa has been in problems before. We have dealt with Ebola, we have dealt with measles, we have dealt with many other outbreaks before. There have been vaccinations, there have been systems that are working to the grassroots level in terms of community health volunteers. And people are very used to this kind of awareness. So when there is an outbreak, instead of people caving inwards and becoming fearful, people go out to see what is it and how can we deal with it. So I think the history really favored us. The situations we had gone through before favored us when COVID came. Instead of people panicking, yes, there was a bit of panic in the beginning, but after seeing the trends, people realized, this will also just be like the other situations that have been there before. So people are cautious at a personal level because people have dealt with polio before, have dealt with many other ailments like this before. So they are sort of psychologically prepared for such outbreaks. But also the government did what they could in terms of raising awareness, but we see a lot of acceptance in the community and in the community levels, people taking responsibility for themselves and trying to do what they can. And I know we have alternative care medicine people on this bench like Neil. Here people also did that, but government doesn't really support that. So we can't really say there is people boiled local herbs, people took local remedies that they know. But if you tell people you are doing that, you will be shut down. You know, you will turn out as if you you are an outcast or something. There is a lot of marketing of big pharma here, big pharmaceuticals, and there's a lot of business in it. So sort of you work out from what you know, and people, I think, really accepted that message well.
Dude.
So let us welcome Gautam.
Welcome.
Have you here?
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Gautam, we just were talking about unconventional approaches to treating illnesses, taking herbs and so on. I saw you nodding. I know you're a homeopath from India and you came late because you had an emergency. Can you tell us a bit about India? How is India at this moment? How are the Indian people?
I was, good afternoon all, and brethren, sorry for the delay. I was nodding not only for the alternating medicines which was not accepted. Brother Ogonji just told about the problems what Africa faced for accepting alternative modes of treatment. But that problem, brother, was faced by countrymen or people across the world. Alternative medicine has always been looked down upon as the secondary line of treatment. Like if people don't get cured by allopathy, then people resort to, majority of the people take it as a secondary line of treatment, not as a primary line of treatment. But here, when we face this pandemic, countrymen and world population across faced with the same insecurity, the same ignorance, we all were in the same boat. So when Brother Ogonji said that they have faced a lot of adversities, so that adversity was felt worldwide. We were all equally ignorant and unaware about this virus and the treatment regarding it. So everybody, like in fact, Mary, I would have told you, like the end of this lecture or in the end of this discussion, the topic would go back to on the brink and back. Because the people across the world have found this adversity and there were solutions found from these adversities. Like first of all, what the major contributing factor was digital media. So everybody went back to discussions, meetings, conferences, seminars, education, everything digital infrastructure was used. And in fact, which was neglected before prior by governments across the world, this infrastructure was neglected and was not taken into consideration as a primary, action. But after this pandemic, even government improved the infrastructure. Rural, I would say, talk about India now. Rural India witnessed a lot of contribution by the government into this infrastructure. Laptops were distributed, computer network was installed, internet Wi-Fi was improved across rural India. This is where we say on the brink and back. Similarly, if you take up on the brink and back with regards to emotional health, people first in the first initial months, people were in, like people, started to enjoy the pandemic break that they got. First 3-4 months, people enjoyed the holidays that they well deserved. So emotional health improved. Then the insecurity set in because a lot of pink slips were distributed by companies worldwide and a lot of people were put on the benches. So then depression started to come in. Then the insecurity came in about what would happen further on. Because previously people thought that it is a matter of 3-4 months and things will pass off. But then as insecurity loomed in, then came in the anxiety factors, then came in the paranoia factor, then came in the importance of emotional health. So again, we go back to things which were neglected further, which was emotional health was always neglected or was not openly discussed by communities. Medical communities always knew the importance of emotional health, and medical communities always talked about the psychosomatic diseases, which were always prevalent. But for a common man, then he realized that now we cannot talk about work pressures. Now we cannot talk about tiredness or exhaustion for traveling to and fro to work, because that was work from home culture which was prevalent. But then he came down to the acceptance of the fact of the psychosomatic illnesses. So again, we go back to on the brink and back. Then third factor, what we saw was not only the term was coined COVID warriors. The term coined was COVID warriors, which was appreciating not only the medical fraternity, wherein medical doctors and paramedical staff and armed personnel, police force, and the class 4 employees, as we term in India, about the ward boys and the nurses, all these people, they, I would say right word would be neglected their own personal lives and family members, and they were ready to serve the community across. So herein we saw the people across the world, they had, they had the ritual of clapping and appreciating these COVID workers who were serving the nation and serving the community across. So these people who have never not got their due appreciation, they got that appreciation in this pandemic. So therein again, these people who have been neglected, actually the people who clean up the garbage, who work in the gutters and the drainage. So these people were appreciated across the world, because that is how they understood the importance of these workers who helped, very much helped in the maintaining of hygiene across the community. So again, these people were given their dues. So again, the value of human life and human profession, the dignity of labor, that is what we saw. Homeopathy or alternative modes always contributed, but people realized the factor of immunity, which elders in our generations have always stressed upon, the immunity factor. Whatever we may now we say the 50th or the 51st genome and the mutation which is now acting and the Omicron which is coming. So all these factors will play a role definitely in the disease evolution, but the basic factor of immunity was given due importance, and that is where alternative modes of treatment which were neglected, like homeopaths over here will understand, like when we say that the truth we mortals seek, us blessed to make and keep, the all-wise slightly covered over but did not bury deep. So Dr. Animan in his first edition of Organon used this couplet, but later on he changed it to Odysseus. But herein we always knew that immunity is a role, important role. Alternative medicines are important. The things available in naturopathy, turmeric, all this is important to use or important to improve the immunity. Herein everything we were aware, but we had forgotten, and we had gone into the use of multivitamins and protein supplements to, I would say simplify. It was not actually simplifying, but it was, which was again, like Ogonji said, pharmaceutical mafia that is prevalent worldwide. That is not only in Africa, brother. It is everywhere. So herein people were pushed into more of supplements, more of vitamins, rather than the natural resources which are available around us. So we have seen on the brink, but definitely we are back with a bang. That is what I would like to tell you.
Yes, Gautam. And before I was connected all over the world to a few friends, but now we are talking each fortnight online and having global panelists here, which is a great thing, because it feels like uniting on a wider scale.
That is what helped to most of the people across communities. So political barriers were withdrawn, no ethnicity, no racism, and people all together, they met at the level, and then they came across to find a solution to this pandemic. So this is what Ogonji, again, like what you have gone through. Every year you said Ebola, we have seen the worst and you have managed it. But definitely the world realized it today, that out of adversity comes better solutions, because there are many heads working in the same, towards the same goal of relieving humanity and, elevating the symptoms and bringing out a proper universal cure towards this disease.
I'd like to
unity in diversity, like what we say that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'd just like to follow up a little bit on what you're talking about there, Gautam. And one of the issues in a country like Australia, where really it's a hypochondriac response, like it's just over the top and crazy, the response that's been taken. And because of the fear structures, we're actually ending up with people being able to make new friends dependent on their choices. But the majority moving them out completely. So there is actually and I absolutely agree that it's like this wonderful rebound from the brink. I completely agree with you there as well. And but it's not a rebound in this country here. It's not a rebound to a wholeness. It's not a rebound to a state of wholeness. It's actually a rebound to a state of separation. And it's a very curious thing, you know, from a psychological perspective. And Svetlana was talking a little bit about this in Moscow just before you came on the call, Gautam. And it's that the separation which is building, and I know it's building in Europe as well. It's a two-edged sword, because on the one side, or two-sided coin, on one side it is a very positive opportunity for people to find community in a way that they've never experienced before, but it's at the cost of deep division. It's at the cost of creating enormously deep division. And there's little in the way of gray area. You know, like in normal situations, you have a strong opinion, you have another strong opinion, and in the middle is a whole wide gray area. Today, in Australia, there's no gray. It's all one color or another color. There's nothing gray in the middle at all. And again, I actually believe that this is a tremendous opportunity as well, because it's forcing people to actually come up and actually make some decisions. Are we going to make a decision to actually wake up and stop fighting each other? So, you know, Zach was talking about the situation in Africa and the fact that the European countries, predominantly European countries and American countries, have created this separation, you know, from the African people as an opportunity to steal money from the African people. This has been, you know, the case. And if we go back 100 years ago, it was the same situation in India, of course, as well. It's an identical circumstance. And this separation, this creating a separation globally, has put tremendous pressure on these things. And yet I completely agree with you, Gautam, that the actual seeds for this wonderful rebound and an awakening are all inside it. They're inside the opportunity. So I just wanted to catch up with those ideas, because it's pretty tough for everyday people here who are now finding that their family members won't talk to them and are continually shouting at them and screaming at them and saying you're an evil person because you're not vaccinated. This is very difficult. But the opportunity for the individual receiving those threats and that, you know, that hatred which is coming to them, the opportunity for them to actually wake up and say, I'm bigger than this. I am bigger. I can emerge out of the suffering, out of this experience. And I'm seeing that every day. So like, I do understand that because of my clinical role, I get to see unusual people. And there are people who are more likely to want to actually try and wake up. But it's not something that I've experienced before in the way that I'm experiencing at the moment. The extent to which people are saying, I have to change. I have to make change inside myself. And that is coming back from the brink in a huge way. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm monopolizing.
So, Brother Neil, it is like, you know, people had got the time to introspect. Otherwise, in the daily life, never did we have, you know, like as aware people who are aware, they have always, you know, at the end of the day or maybe twice or thrice a week, we have taken out time and we have done introspection. But herein we saw the whole community, they had a lot of time to sit and introspect. So that is when you say looking within yourself for the solutions. That is what has helped the community. And definitely there are always people who never change. So we cannot take that into consideration. We'll see that there are many people who are never into alternative modes of treatment or never away from allopathy. They have also thought and they also saw. So I would say 30% of people who were always for allopathy, they are not going and seeking alternative modes of treatment. So I would say 40% of people who were never concerned about their personal physical health, they have started actually walking. They have taken up active sports like badminton to keep themselves physically fit. So even if I would say when we first started the lecture, in fact, Mary, if you remember, I had told that it will be very difficult for people to, improve, like what masses in India were following, it will be very difficult for them to improve. But even if 10% of people, I had told that time also, and I tell today also, if 10% of people in India continue wearing masks, their upper respiratory tract diseases will reduce by 80%. So only thing, if they continue maintaining sanitation, basic hygiene, washing hands, social distancing and mask, if Indians continue in this, not even in this significance, even if 10% of Indians continue doing it, which they were not following, I would say 80% of upper respiratory tract disorders will reduce. This we have seen in our practice. In last 1.5 years, our upper respiratory tract diseases and gastrointestinal GIT diseases have reduced because people have not been going out. People have not been exposed to junk food so much. People were having regular food at regular intervals at home because they were having work from home. So they were having their food at regular time. People were not skipping meals. So GI diseases and respiratory diseases have reduced in existing patients. And people who were not into homeopathy, they have been attracted to homeopathy thanks to the arsenic alb. That had worked or not, that was there right or not, we are not talking about it. But only thanks to that so-called arsenic alb prophecy or promotions, people who were not in homeopathy, they are coming towards homeopathy and alternating modes.
Yes, I really like the conversation. If there's anything that forced Kenyans to really reflect was the effect that came with the lockdown and COVID itself. Not the disease didn't make them change their minds. The disease, because they have been in similar situations before. They have had many devastating diseases before. The lockdown and realizing that hunger was threatening their lives. Their livelihood was being threatened. Your savings were being eroded because you could no longer work. People were fired overnight. There was no preparation that you would lose your job. Such situations made people reflect. I have a number of teachers who work with us. And when COVID happened, we really had a simple situation, a simple solution to let everybody go because we are community school. We depend from sponsors and people supporting, so we can be able to pay. And sponsors, if they don't see children in school, they will not pay. And coming just at that point when we are faced with this situation and it is threatening our livelihood, we'll not be able to provide for our children, we'll not be able to provide for ourselves, because then government has shut down schools, government has shut down everything where we depend to get our daily bread, because here people work for them to eat, for them to live their day-to-day life. We sat down and said, what do we do? How do we face this situation? We must find an alternative. And we said, I remember saying to my team, we have a situation where you go sit home, do nothing, and you perish. Or we come and find ways to deal with this problem. We continue to provide for ourselves and we continue to live our lives. And we deliberated and we said, okay, we will teach our children, because we're in the rural areas. We can't talk about online learning. We can't talk about digital learning. We came up with an initiative called Teachers on the Bike Initiative. And we told the teachers that you need to go and visit the children in their homes to be able to, the children, and to be able to support them from there. And actually, during this period, we learned that our teachers learned to associate with their learners. They learned to see the children from the perspective of when they are at home than when they just meet them in the school. Our teachers ended up being champions for washing hands, teaching the community around safety and all those. They came across issues of gender-based violence in the families, child labor, children working in the farms, because when school is closed, the parents are happy that they have 4 extra hands to go and work in the farm. So we faced really different challenges that threatened our existence, and our intuition to change was not because of the COVID itself, but was because the effects of COVID were threatening our very existence, and we needed to work in around it, find a way around it that we can be safe from COVID, but our livelihood is not threatened. So that's the perspective that continues today, that everything that people are doing is not because of the COVID itself and the threat that it poses, but the livelihood, the things that they do so that they can live their lives. That's what has really shaped how people are saving. I know many teachers who, after their schools closed down and they were not paid, decided to start a new business, decided to do something different so they can continue to live their lives. And when school were reopened and they were called back, they told their employers, you can continue doing whatever you are doing. We have moved on with our lives to do other things. So for me, that's what I really see and what I experienced here in terms of how we've been at the brink and people have found new ways to, exist and go beyond it.
Can I share something with you?
Yes.
I see so much power and self-sufficiency in your eyes. And I see somebody who deeply, deeply knows who he is and is deeply, deeply connected to his roots.
Thank you.
It's the truth. It's not a compliment. It's literally what I'm seeing. And yes. I challenge you from now on to share these aspects of you a lot more with your teachers and with your children, because this is what will inspire them not just to study, but to come up with things that were never invented before, just like you have. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before that your history helped you better deal with COVID. I think this is another aspect where your own history is going to help you become self-sufficient, and it's already doing that. Mm. How does that feel?
It is actually, we are at that place where we are thinking we have to change or we have to perish. If we continue looking onto the West or looking that our solutions will come from somewhere else, it's no longer working. We need to find our own solutions at the grassroots level.
Yes. And that comes from understanding your power, your value, and understanding that your history is exceptionally rich and exceptionally valuable, right? It always has been. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. Neil, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel are some solutions for the division in Australia? Like, what are we going to do? Are we just going to, be two camps of people for the rest of our existence, or how are we going to figure this out?
Well, my sense of it is that it's absolutely unsustainable. That there is in no way that it's sustainable, and already there are initiatives coming out. You're talking about that creative potential, and there's creative people here in Australia as well, and we, it's absolutely obvious that it's not sustainable, the situation. And indeed, the pressure, we go back to Gautam, what he's saying is that were it not for this pressure, we wouldn't have actually got to the place where people recognize that, for example, having everything driven by, big pharma and like very, very big companies. Yeah. That wouldn't be possible at all.
You said big pharma, and then this ass just started wailing.
In fact, it is an approval. It is a sound of approval.
Very good, very good. So it's not just pharma; it's all of the the large business and so on and so forth. So where I live in Western Australia, it's a mining state. So it's a state which has tremendous natural resources, all kinds of minerals and so on and so forth. And the reliance upon big companies and big business and that international money and so on and so forth, people are recognizing here that that's completely inappropriate. That there has to be another way of actually creating, and sustaining opportunities for ordinary people. So it's totally changing. It's totally changing here, and we can only thank the pandemic and all of the craziness.
Right, but
you know,
how do we get back to unity again? Like, how do we solve this division challenge? What do you guys think?
What challenge?
Talking.
I love that.
The challenges have already been met, brother. It is just we continue to be consistent in whatever the world community of health professionals have already decided upon. Not depending on only on medicines, because they keep on changing their line of treatment every 3 months. So not depending on that, but basically whatever we have discussed about, looking into self-immunity, looking into physical and mental, emotional health, and speaking to like-minded people and spreading the same knowledge what we generate to our brethren around us. Awareness of the adversity and realization of what resources we have and implementation of what techniques we learn. Because it should be like the heart may desire, the brain may conceive, but if the hands be not prompt enough, then everything goes to vain.
Svetlana, you want to say something?
Pardon?
Yes.
Svetlana wanted to answer you.
Yes. Yeah, I think that our time brings us new opportunities. Yes, and I think back to the 1990s and the difficult years in Russian, very difficult years in Russian. And my mother was an engineer by professional. Yes, and when she lost her job, she went to into real estate. Into real estate, yes. And I think business develops new parts of our brain and activating new neural networks. And now we need to have people together. And this bringing together brings about a strengthening of our spirit. And we arrange now a lot of activities in homeopathy field. For example, we organized a conference on depression, where we were invited different specialists, psychotherapists, psychologists, other doctors, and we took part in international colloquium organized by LMHI. Maybe you know Dr. Gautam, LMHI organization. And now we are preparing an international conference on homeopathy in January 2022. And this is very encouraging for people. Yes. And now my own activities, we have started to build a team of our own and which deals with essential oils. And we have started to build a team of which deals with essential oils, and this is international cooperation. We already have 15 people in our team now, and there are people from all over Russia. Communication happens mostly using modern technology. Yes, this is internet, Zoom, Skype, and etc. In 1990, we have only a telephone, no internet, and now we have a lot of opportunities to communicate with people around the world. Yes, and business is about changing the way people think and meeting new people and providing new opportunities. I think this is my talk.
Svetlana, talking about essential oils reminds me that I ask you to send me some eucalypt oil, because I know the Russian one is the best.
Yes, exactly. Lime and eucalypt.
Sorry, Svetlana. Sorry.
No,
I was just wondering.
Neil or Svetlana, who wants to talk?
No. Lemon eucalypt is better. Lemon eucalypt oil is better. Not eucalypt oil, lemon eucalypt oil.
Ah.
Yes, it's better, yes.
Great. Neil, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to go back to Bogdan's question, because it's a penetrating question. And one of the things, the difficulty asking me a question like that is that I'm looking at it from so many different avenues. So if I think about it clinically, what I'm seeing is a massive spike in personality disorders. So this is Svetlana's, key area. She's works in psychiatry, but there's this tremendous increase in personality disorders going on in the subclinical as well as clinical. And this is all stress response stuff. It's actually responding to the stress. One of the elements, pretty much I have an unusual way of viewing personality disorders, and to me it's a stress response. So it isn't it's a way of dealing with an overwhelm, and so we develop these ways of disconnecting from so-called reality. This is what we do. Now, one of the things that's happening in this positive side that we're talking about with communities is that people are recognizing the way in which they have disconnected from their own reality. So I'm not talking about something objective. I'm talking about the reality that the person knows for themselves. And that recognition process is enormously hopeful. So one of the issues around how do we actually conquer the divide, other than talking, which is what Marianne's, suggesting, and it's absolutely right. But people actually have to begin to suspect that they've been lying to themselves, that they have been lied to by other people. So this is the beginning. The beginning is that you have to have a suspicion that might be occurring. Out of that suspicion, sure, there will be an escalation in the personality disorders, but at the same time, there will also be an escalation of people who begin to untangle these belief systems which have been fabricated and distractions which have been completely fabricated. So it's an inside job. The answer to your question is that it's an inside job for the individual. The stimulus for it comes from a deep sort of subconscious recognition that, hang on a minute, I have been deluding myself. There have been delusions. And it's little, it's very small, but it's enough to actually make change. And on a population basis, that actually can swing the situation. Now, I'm seeing that, even in the haters. So the people who are in this huge group in Australia who hate the people who weren't vaccinated, for example, and they're really strong. Even in amongst that group, they're going, oh, hang on a minute. I'm not really very comfortable with this level of apartheid, which is being developed here. So we get the segregation in the society. We've got second-class citizens who have almost no rights, who are unvaccinated, for example. In amongst a percentage of that group of the haters, they're beginning to say, hang on a minute, I'm lying to myself. Yes. I'm supporting something which is an internal lie. It's against my basic nature. And so there's this self-repair process around the subclinical personality disorders. The people who are completely psychotic, well, they need a lot of help. But it's in the subclinical region is the hope. That's where the hope is. So that's probably a better answer to your question, Bogdan.
Thank you. And it does make a lot of sense. Yes.
Yes, and I also just wanted to add that one other aspect that is working for Africa and needs to be looked at as an opportunity is the population here is 60% of the population is actually people below 35 years old. So we have a very young population across the continent. And unfortunately, the pressure really is there because the unemployment rates are very high, especially during this COVID when economies have collapsed and things are not working. And many of these young people have become very disoriented, have become very, they're almost giving up because we see that they need employment. They are graduating in drones. Governments have invested in access to education for many of them, and people are going to higher education, coming out of universities expecting to be given jobs, and they are not receiving jobs. So when you look at since COVID started, the number of people who are unemployed are up in the sky. And this is leading to the frustration, and more people are fleeing the continent, going to look for greener pastures. And because the West and the rest of the world knows this, they are putting those restrictions. They are making it difficult for people to go and look for those employment opportunities to their countries, and that's why it's easy for them to do a red list of travels, and make it very difficult for people to move from this side to that side. Not because of COVID per se, that people from this side will bring the pandemic or the COVID to those sides, but really because there are other issues. Because the people on this side are not moving because they are running away from COVID. They are moving because they are looking for greener pastures. So while we have a younger population that has not been very susceptible to COVID-19, they have been susceptible to the economic downturn that has been caused by the pandemic, and this is leading them to live in drones. And this is worrying us because who then develops Africa? Because anybody who is able to move is well equipped, is knowledgeable enough, and they are leaving behind people who are not skilled, people who are not very knowledgeable to create. In Kenya, actually, they recently signed a scheme that allows nurses to be taken to Britain. The government got a deal because we have many nurses who are not employed. This does not mean that Kenyans have enough nurses. You know, the ratio of one nurse to the patient is not sufficient. But because the nurses don't have opportunities, they will jump on the next plane and go to Britain to work there. So these are a lot of contradictions that we see in the society, and we feel there is a challenge, and part of this challenge is really emanating from globalization. We are at a point where, as Africa, we can't pull out of the globalization issue, but also we are deep into it, and it's affecting us, I think, the most.
May I offer some hope?
Yes.
So, I left Romania when I finished high school. I studied abroad, and I studied in Greece, and I lived in Italy for 2 years. The reason why I moved back to Romania, and it was the best decision ever, was because of the hope of one day having an online business and being able to do my work from home and, you know, do whatever I did, like have work with the whole world, but live in my home country. I have a feeling that most of the people that are leaving Kenya right now, it's going to be extremely beneficial for them because it really changes you, it expands you a lot, but they are always going to crave being home, because wherever you are in the world, if it doesn't really feel like home, if you feel like an outsider, and most people will, some people won't, right? You will want to come back home. And now with the emergence of being able to work from home and have the option of actually working from anywhere, I have other friends who are Romanians who traveled the world, but guess what? They still came back and work from home from Romania, because home is home. And I think a lot of people, even though the young generation is leaving, a lot of them will come back and will want to give back to their home country. That's it. That was my perspective. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you.
That is, see, the same trend we're seeing with India also. Many of the brothers, many of the community who was working across the globe, they are coming back. They have come back and they like working from India now. But there are 2-3 impacts of this scenario. First of all, people who are working abroad, when they come back here, companies in India, they take up these people who have been ex-parties, who have been working abroad, because of the so-called cliche that, these people are working in the United States of America, or these people are working in Germany, and these people are working in Europe. So maybe they are better than the working force what Indians had, the companies had with Indians working for them. So these people who are coming back, are in fact eating onto the jobs of the people who were working here previously in the same position. That is one thing. Second thing, people who were working abroad, it is the emotional need which they have been attracted back towards India. So there has been an analysis, psychoanalysis, that it may be for a couple of years or so. And see, once you have lived abroad, from looking into the scenario of Indian scenario of many things, like maybe value for whatever work they had inputted, and not the due returns were not given in terms of the monetary gains what they had. So after 3-4 years, people who feel that they are better with emotions and better with the emotional security of working at home, so they may get frustrated again, and they may want to seek back again, going back to wherever they were. This is a possibility. The second thing is that whatever vacuum of these people who have come back to India have been created. So now we have seen a lot of outflux of people, younger generations are going abroad to work, because of the vacuum which has been generated by people who have come back home. So this is a psycho-socio-economical change which will have its own cycle and which may reverse back to what it was. All people who want to come back home, definitely. But they went there for better prospects, for greener pastures, for working, hard working, and then saving and then planning their retirement after coming back home. This pandemic forced them midway. Like when Brother Ogonji said that overnight jobs were gone and there were no backups because nobody had planned. People who in 2019, the scenario across the world was financial down, Brexit was to be implemented, political scenarios were, turbulent across the world. So people were very hopeful about 2020. But 2020 came and vanished. Nothing was done in 2020. So whatever we plan always has an obstacle which we just unseen many a times. So definitely, like my brother says that definitely it is good to work from home. But there were two things which were important to be discussed, was that they were eating into the jobs of people who were already working there. And second, definitely creating jobs for younger people or younger generations who want to now take permanent residencies in countries across the world away from India also. So these scenarios is what is going on in our country now.
Yeah, a lot of fluctuation all over the planet. And just as we see today here in our talk, it's very interesting to unite on a global scale and to hear how everybody is on the other continents, because we just don't do that often enough. Being interested in people living in other places, other continents, other conditions, other mindsets.
Yeah.
And we are really not aware of that.
Yeah.
So it was very great for me today to see that there's such a split up in Western Australia, that the Kenyans and the Africans don't have as many problems as we have, because they are used to much more severe illnesses and know how to handle them. It was great to see Gautam. And by the way, Gautam, did you finish your law studies yet?
No, I've completed my 3rd semester. There are 3 more to go.
Oh, 3 more to go. Okay. But great, you used this opportunity to study law.
Yes.
It's amazing to me. Totally amazing to me. Yeah, and Bogdan, so nice of you to jump in today for Bilbo, who sadly is ill.
It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me. It was really insightful to listen to all of your perspectives and see that there's so much energy and so much hope. And just like Gautam said, 10% is enough. I think we're gonna create powerful change, even if we're not the majority, but it's gonna be enough. So yeah, And appreciate you for allowing me to share some of my feelings and insights with all of you.
So we're coming to the end of this discussion. May I hear some summarizes or final words you want to say to the audience? Who wants to start?
I think I can go first. First, I want to say thank you all to fellow panelists. I have gotten a lot of insights. I'm very happy to interact with all of you and to share my perspective about what is going on. We are at a difficult place as humanity, but I think just like before, I believe in the power of humanity to change and to be able to adjust and to overcome. So we will not die, we will not end, we will adjust and we will find ways. And even what is looking like the popular solution will not be the popular solution that we expect. People will come up with other ways that will survive and will stand the test of time. So I believe in people myself, and I believe that with a little trigger like COVID, we can really stretch ourselves, go beyond what we believe that we can be able to achieve. So I look at Kenya and I look at Africa and I look at what people are doing and how people are approaching the challenges they are having without expecting someone from elsewhere to come and help them deal with it. And I have a lot of hope in the humanity. So I'm very happy, and I look forward to having conversations and interacting with you in many different spaces. And hopefully we can bring the change wherever we are, in a smaller way, in a bigger way, all is fine. I think we will make some change.
Definitely, and don't forget, we are doing Kiswahili course for those who are interested in Africa.
Yes.
For the next 3 years, so that those who are interested to visit Africa, to do business with Africa, or to even move there, can do Kiswahili online course with Zacchaeus and Jackson and me, and it will be really fun. So whoever is interested, just write to FutureLink.
Exactly. We are starting with that small change of just having people come and learn the Swahili so that they can be able to communicate with us in our own language, because it has been always the other way around. People come and it's us to learn their language. What about if they learned our language and did business with us in our language? How will that look like? I think a better world.
Who's next?
For me, it would be, I'll just take this opportunity again to go back to the topic would have been better, and we would always tell the community around us and to ourselves, it is on the brink and back. So we have always, the adversities should be there. It is like when we say that fire is the test of gold and adversities of strong men. So if the adversities don't come in, we would never introspect. We would never understand our inner potential. We would never value what knowledge we have gained over the years, and we would never evolve into a better person of what we already are. Like it is like making good men better. So that is what this adversities has taught us. So I would end with this, the same thing, on the brink and back.
Thank you, Gautam. Svetlana?
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the talk. And thank you for my participation in this discussion. And I wish everyone to go back to the roots and explore the new possibilities that life gives us. And today in Russia we have a holiday, St. Nicholas. And I believe in the human spirit and in its dynamic tendency to develop. Thank you very much, and I hope we will be well.
You too, Svetlana.
Thank you.
Look, I'd like to really thank Svetlana for putting up with us all talking English to her, and it's a real kindness. And you know what what Zach is talking about, that teaching the Swahili to people, people like me do not understand the extent to which it's difficult. In fact, I'm the only native English speaker here in this group, and
I'm sorry for my English, really, because I have been learning it. I think to my end of life.
I have enough trouble speaking English myself, and but the interesting thing is this expectation, and indeed why is it that we shouldn't all be speaking Swahili, and being able to have a conversation in that ancient language, and same thing could go for these very ancient languages in India as well, of course, Gautam. And I'm not meaning to distract from the power of these cultures. And when you're talking about those things, I realize that whilst English is my first language, I'm not an English person. So it's and I've been subject really to this the same type of colonial energies which has gone on for generations and generations. So I just appreciate the conversation today, and I absolutely agree with the sentiment here that there are so many possibilities and so many opportunities arising, and I've not ever been so optimistic as I am today. I'm at the most optimistic space that I can remember, and there's opportunities for economic and cultural change on a scale which was unheard of before. So thank you everybody, and I talk too much, but thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Bogdan?
Awesome. Yeah, this was definitely an awesome conversation. What comes to mind is that you usually throw away a couch either when it's broken or when it stinks. And I think we're all in the process of throwing away many, many broken and stinky couches so that we can replace them with a new one. So.
Yeah. That's definitely it. Gautam?
Yeah, no, I would like to wish all of you all a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Personally, I would just like to wish, because we are on camera now, maybe across LinkedIn or across messages, we may again wish each other. But personally, when we are on camera, and to the community who is listening to us, a very happy and prosperous and healthy New Year 2022. We really hope and pray rather that everybody, community across, lives in abundance of health and prosperity.
So be it.
Awesome. Yes.
So be it. Thank you very much, everybody. We're closing the live stream now. Thank you, listeners,